We're at the top of the hexagram. We're in line 6 of gate 6, the gate of conflict, the gate of friction, gate of intimacy. And in the 6th line, we have the peacemaker. When we get to the 6th line, we're at the top of the house. We're sitting on the roof. And we get to a line of transition. The 6th line, in its resonance to the 3rd line, is strongly fertile. Oh, it's like the 3rd line in that respect, but it's unlikely to reproduce. It's looking for something greater. What it's looking at has nothing to do with the other person. This is to do with the world that their children would live in. You know, they are the kind of people who are going to say, I know I have to have children, but what kind of world are they going to live in? When they're at the high end of their wave, they'll say that. At the low end of their wave, they will say, I know I should have children, but it's a terrible world. It's awful. I'm not going to have children because I need a better world for them to grow up in. So this has nothing to do with the nature of direct intimacy in that sense. It can also almost seem apathetic. It's the wave of sympathy and apathy after all. It's in resonance to the 59-6, the role of the one-night stand, which is often deeply misunderstood. The one-night stand may be the only time that that 6th line will ever have an intimacy. You know, it may be once in their life, and maybe a lot, until they learn in their wave what they're really about. But it's not necessarily what we always think of as a one-night stand. This is the defense circuit. It's tribal. It's where life is being generated out of that sacral from the 59 connection. The law of growth for humanity is make more. Now here it is not about who I will make more with. It is more about what kind of world are my children going to live in. The lifetime learning says the discipline and integrity of a superior force to unilaterally cease conflict, to permit surrender and survival of its foe. This is a lifetime learning. The 6th line doesn't come into this incarnation knowing how this works. And while they're learning, well, they can hurt a lot of people. They go through this process, their 3rd line trial and error youth, getting into and breaking bonds. And through this process, they learn to recognize that they're the result, you know, that they are the source, that they are the problem. And I only say problem in the unaware kind of sense. The 6 will withdraw completely from intimacy because they see that they themselves distort the intimacy and that they don't make it work. Remember, wisdom is always possible when we get to the 6th line. And also remember that the 6 lines are transpersonal with a greater perspective than the other lines. They don't just know that there's a gate at the other end of the channel. They're looking towards the whole circuit. You know, they are saying, oh, if I'm intimate with this person, will the relationship survive? You know, is it practical enough? Will we be able to live together and nurture each other to build a life together? It has many questions, this 6th line, and it realizes that its own power to be emotional minimalizes its opportunities for long-term relationships. You know, it learns in life that it's better not to be intimate until it finds perfect intimacy. You know, again, it's that resonance to the 59-6 and the one-night stand, looking for its soulmate. Happy to have no intimacy at all if there's no soulmate. In the exaltation, we have the highest form of reason is that life is sacred. The emotional power to end conflict, tempered by feelings and sensitivity to others. Now, the analogy of this keynote is giving up violence. You know, this is giving up on being emotional and that force, which can be a violent force. You know, but it's also, in that sense, giving up on intimacy. In the detriment, we have the peacemaker whose actions are just, but whose terms are unacceptable. The emotional power to end conflict, but only after one's conditions have been satisfied. The sixth line is saying, I know what kind of intimacy I would like to have with you as a person. I know what intimacy is. I'm a sixth line, but I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what world my children will live in. If it's not a good world, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Who's going to be the judge of that, though? This is an emotional wave, after all, sympathy and apathy. On the one side, if I have children, I will have them with you. This is the sympathetic side. The apathetic side is not caring whether they understand why or why not. You will not engage in intimacy. You know what I mean? The sixth line here, particularly in that sense, it doesn't have to engage in intimacy. Intimacy for them represents something much greater. They are always looking for a way in which they can be the ones who are in charge of the emotional quality of the relationship. They're the ones who are setting this condition of what is possible, what the potential is. Often these people end up with partners where they both work to make the world a better place. There can be a lot of pain in this gate of conflict. There can be a lot of pain in the process of the sixth line, especially when they're young. And some of that pain, of course, belongs to anybody who they're connected to in that process. 6-6 can suffer deeply in its life, and so can others who get mixed up with it. And it's withdrawal to the mountaintop. It's a retreat to get away from all of that. And it must do that in order for it to then come back, in order for it to see that intimacy really is possible. Intimacy that allows it to live out its emotional nature. So where does this sixth line go to next? Well, it goes to the love of the body. It goes into the vessel of love. It goes to the 46th gate. Sex is sex, but love, wow, love's another story. And if you cannot find it through the sexuality, then you have to be able to find it through love. And love will make that possible for the 6-6. And so we move into the 46th hexagram. And the grounding for this last line of gate 6 is, of course, the 36 in the 6th line, and it's called justice. Justice for the peacemaker. Ra used to joke that this line sounded so nice, the line of the peacemaker. But, actually, the peacemaker, when you think about it, was the name of a gun from the days of the American Wild West. It was a Colt 45, I believe. And it was also called the Widowmaker. So I wonder where the justice comes in when you're looking at this line. So Mercury moved into 47 at 8:33 this morning. The gate making sense of the confusion, the gate of realizing up there in the Ajna. Mercury has an influence on mental health, so the relief of the pressure from gate 64 is likely to be felt here. For the last week, we may have been aware of more confusion than usual in our environment. Nearly had a whole transit without a mistake. This week, we have the potential for some clarity. Some things may start making sense. Some balls may land. And we can breathe a sigh of relief that there are no planets coming into this channel for a little while. The moon has just moved out of gate 21. So the channel with Jupiter in gate 45 is no longer active unless you have gate 21 in your design. The moon instead has moved into gate 51 at 10:18. Another ego gate is the gate of shock, and it's activating another channel. But this time it's with Neptune in gate 25, and we know that Neptune has the quality of fuzziness. So I don't know what happens with this channel, with a fuzzy channel. It's the channel of fuzzy initiation. It's a design of needing to be first, and not necessarily in the competitive sense, although it can be that, but also in the desire to be first to do something, to be original. This is a channel in the centering circuit. It's part of individuality. It doesn't want to be influenced by anyone else. So the competition can come through being competitive with ourselves, shocking ourselves and others by stretching beyond our normal limits in order to feel the wonder of our own unique spirit. It's interesting to contemplate that there are a whole generation of kids coming through who are going to have Neptune in gate 45, who will see innocence, if they see it at all, through a veil. For a whole raft of children, because it's there for a few months. There will be this veil over innocence, over the love of the self, over the potential qualities of the shaman, and the way of being initiated through into awareness in the now for the self. It's something to contemplate, isn't it? Gate 42, this is the moon's next stop at 1914. The gate of increase, the gate of growth, the expansion of the resources which maximizes the development of full potential. This is known as the gate of endings, and there can be consistent pressure in this sacral gate to finish what has been started. The energy will be there to see it through to completion if whatever it was entered into in the right way. This is a cyclical energy, it's a format energy, so it influences the whole design. And the final movement of the moon is into gate 3 at 4:13 tomorrow morning. Difficulty at the beginning, the gate of ordering, another sacral gate. And we have another channel. This time the moon meets Pluto. Pluto is in gate 60, so we have the channel of mutation, another format energy. So be on the lookout for change today. Something unpredictable may show up in your experience. There could be a feeling of melancholy, perhaps. This is individuality, and all gates in this circuit carry melancholy as a theme. There can be some frustration, perhaps. It's a generator channel. Perhaps the frustration comes because the timing of change is not up to us. It comes in a pulse, and the pulse is generated by life. It's not generated by us. Waiting for a change when you feel so ready for a change, that can be hard. Change coming when you're not ready for it. That can be equally as hard. So there we are. The end of gate 46. Thank you so much for joining me through this journey, through this exploration of the lines and the gates of the mandala, through the lens of the human design system. We move into a new gate tomorrow. This is gate 46. This is a G center gate, and it marks the center of the quarter of duality. It also means that we are just about experiencing the autumn equinox. So we're moving to that point where equal day and equal night. I'm a daylight eater. That's my PHS. So this time of year, it always marks that point where I've had the long summer of being able to eat practically, well, not quite all day, but I've had a huge window. And my window for eating and taking in nourishment is slowly getting smaller and smaller as we make our way towards the shortest day. Yeah, that's how the wheel turns. I will see you tomorrow, and until then, go gently, and thank you as always for joining me. I really appreciate that you share your time with me. It means a lot that you do that, and I get the comments, and it's lovely. I do appreciate it all. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow.